Again, welcome to Practical Research 1. So, it is now start of the second quarter of Practical Research 1. So, last time we discussed the chapters 1 of the research paper or a thesis. So, we discussed how to choose a topic, how to formulate a research title, and the specific and the major problems or the statement of the problem, also the purpose of your research, and at the same time we discuss the scope, the limitation of research. Now we will discuss the chapter 2 of a research paper or a thesis, or the module 11 to 3 of practical research 1, or learning from others and reviewing the literature. So in this discussion, we will discuss, or as a student, you are expected to first select a relevant literature, cite related literature using standard style, the APA, MLA, or the Chicago Manual of Style, synthesize information from relevant literature, write coherent review of literature, follow ethical standards in writing literature, and present a written review of literature. Okay, so this is the chapter 2 of a research paper, or this is what we call a review of related literature and studies. Now, what do we mean by relevant literature, or the literature itself? Now, what do you mean by literature? So when you say literature, what do you mean by that? Anybody in the chat box? You can type your answer in the chat box. From the word literature, or I'm sure you have the 21st century literature subject, right? Shania, the written works, yes, correct. The books from Shania, written works from Nina, composed of facts and principles according to Lawrence. Patricia, any piece of written type work that has a topic or idea. Books from Gian Paulo. Writings, written history, writings published on a particular subject according to Flores. Andrea Flores, okay. Printed materials from Ligmont. Okay, so what do we mean by relevant literature? So from the word relevant, what do you mean by relevant? The word relevant. From Sinaya, important. From Neo, tinagalog lang, mahalaga. Ang galing niya talaga mo. Associated with an idea, meaningful from Patricia and Aiken. Related from Pauline, okay? So, when we say relevant literature, or related literature or relevant literature is composed of discussions and of facts and principles which the present study is related. So when we say related literature or relevant literature, the literature, when we say literature class, it is anything that is written. So from books, newspapers, journal, or even printed or published materials in the internet is considered as literature. So anything that is written, that is literature. Now, when we say relevant literature, from the word itself, or since magaling kayo mag-translate, when we say relevant literature, ito yung mga may connection sa topic or sa discussion na ginagawa natin or sa thesis na ginagawa natin. Okay? So it can be books, encyclopedia, professional journals, magazines, newspapers, and other publications classified from local. When we say local literature class, it is printed and written, or written and printed in the Philippines, to foreign literature, or printed or written and printed abroad. So, in chapter 2 of your thesis, in the related literature, you have to present a local literature and a foreign literature. So, John Andrew, yes, nice answer. Yung mga nakasulat sa notebook, yes, anything that is written, that is considered as literature. Okay? So, even this one, even this presentation is considered as literature. Even our chat box is considered as literature since it is written. Okay? So, in review of related literature or in your chapter 2 class, you have to present local literature. Again, when we say local literature, it is written and printed in the Philippines, local. When we say foreign, it is written and published or printed outside the Philippines. Okay, so it should be relevant, meaning it has connection to our topic. So when we say literature, it is composed of books, encyclopedia, journal, magazine, newspaper, and other publications. While the related studies, dalawa yan class ha, in chapter 2, review of related literature and related studies. So aside from related literature, you have to present related studies. So when we say related studies, these are the researches, inquiries, or investigations already conducted to which the present proposed study is related or has some bearing or similarity. They are usually unpublished materials such as manuscripts, theses, and dissertations classified as local or foreign. Meaning, when we say related literature, these are the literature or these are the information or data na kinuha nyo sa books, encyclopedia, or this anything or any one of these. That is considered as literature. Pero kapag ang topic or ang data is kinuha sa research, investigations, inquiries, or even a thesis, yan, manuscripts or dissertation, they are classified as related studies. Gets? So again, dalawa yan, related literature and related studies. From Francis, yes, even ancient text is called literature. Okay? So, dalawa yung ipepresent nyo sa thesis or sa research paper nyo. One, related literature, yung mga kinuha sa books, yung mga kinuha sa magazines or newspapers, and one related, or the other one is related studies na kinuha naman sa research, thesis, or sa ibang thesis. Okay? So that is relevant literature or the related literature and related studies. Now, what are the characteristics of related literature and studies na kukunin nyo? So when we say relevant, it has or it should have connection. Okay? So first, ano ba yung first characteristic is the survey material must be recent as possible. So when we say recent as possible, as new as possible. Okay, so it is advised that you should get not later than 3 to 5 years as of publication. So if you will conduct a research now, 2021, so kailan dapat yung pinaka-late na research na kukunin nyo or literature na kukunin nyo? If ngayong 2021 kayo magkakandak ng study, if, again, it must be recent as possible, so 3 to 5 years. 3 to 5 years, yes, Arian, from 2016 as onwards, okay? So, bakit? Why do you think the material should be as recent as possible? Anybody? For credibility from Aiken? Do I pronounce your name correct, Aiken? From Patricia, nobody likes outdated stuff. Wow. Okay, joke. So from, yes, Chrysaline, updated information. Okay. From Chan, pwede rin, dahil hindi pa nagagawa ng research. For connection studies from Flora, correct. Yes, to maintain the quality of information and upgraded information from Pauline and Icon. Yes, Sinaya, pabago-bago kasi ang information since it changes. So, we have to get the recent as possible since the information changes fast. Diba? So, for example, in the past 3 years, in the past 5 years, ano ba yung mga bago? So, pwedeng kung ano yung bago ngayon is hindi na trend nung 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So, hindi mo na siya magagamit and hindi na siya updated. Okay? Next is materials review must be objective and unbiased. So, when we say objective and unbiased, again, when we say biased, may kinikilingan, di ba? So, the materials that we should get, or the literature and studies that we should get, should be unbiased. So, some materials kasi are one-sided, di ba? So, one-sided lang. So, hindi, it is biased or hindi siya makatotohanan. So, it must be unbiased. Next, materials surveyed or the related literature and studies must be relevant to the study. Again, it must have connection to the problem or to our study. Next is the surveying materials must have been based on genuinely original and true facts or data to make them valid and reliable. Sorry. So what do you mean by that? It must have been based on genuinely original and true facts or data. So, dapat, ano siya? Must be original, true, okay? Makatotohanan, yes, from John Andrew, from Mary May, based on original, legit from Prince Colin. Yes, I can correct. Very good. Para makaiwas yung reader sa fake news. Okay, and then also to avoid fake news, di ba? So, especially now, since fake news are very prevalent or talaga malaganap, so as much as possible, class, huwag kayong kukuha ng fake news, ha? Okay. Baka naman ayun lang yung mga inedit sa Facebook tapos in-upload. Tapos kukuha kayo. So as much as possible, you have to get from reliable sources like Google Scholar. Instead of Google, ang gagamitin nyo is Google Scholar. Yes, ganyan, pahiya ka nun, okay? Oh, kaya iwasan natin yung mga fake news na yan. We have to validate them first before using. Oh, tapos dinefense nyo, di ba? Oh. Yes, from Flores. Iwas false alarm. Okay lang yan, Mark Daniel, kung nadali ka ng ganyan. Huwag natin paglalaban ng mali, ha? Oo. Next. If the reviewed materials must not be too few or too many. So, actually, there is no exact number of how many materials you have to present. It must not be too few, hindi siya pwedeng konti or hindi rin siya pwedeng madami. So, it depends on you as a researcher kung ilan yung gagamitin yung related literature and studies. As long as it has connection to your topic. Yes, yung sakto lang. Basta may connection sa topic nyo. Okay? That's why it should be relevant. Asan ba yun? Ito. Okay? So, depende sa inyo kung ilan ang ilalagay niyong review of related literature and studies as long as it has connections. Okay? So, those are the characteristics of related literature and studies. So, from item, pag masyadong konti daw ang credibility. Pag masyadong madami, yes, correct, malilito yung readers. Okay? So, dapat sakto lang para hindi nasasaktan. I mean, hindi nahihirapan sa research. Ano ba kasi yung class? Medyo ko lang. Okay? Why naman like that? Medyo ko lang class. Okay? Next na, para hindi masaktan. Ay, ano. Okay, now next is the types of sources. When we say types of sources, ano ba yung mga tawag doon sa mga pwede natin pagkuhanan? Okay, so first is static source. When we say static sources, they are only published once, although they may be redeveloped as other editions. So again, when we say static, they are only published once. So, like books, paintings, films, and basic websites. So, ayun yung static. Ibig sabihin, once lang sila na-publish. Pero kapag nire-publish, redevelop na ang tawag doon. Yes, class, as much as possible, avoid wiki. Okay? In Wikipedia, although it is a source from the internet, it is not advisable to get from Wikipedia since anyone can edit the page in Wikipedia. Okay? Ako, for example, meron akong account sa Wikipedia, I can edit that. Okay? Pwedeng ilagay kong picture ko dun sa Wikipedia ko, picture ni Liza Soberano. O, na-joke. O, di ba? O. So, that is not reliable kasi that is, anyone can edit that. Okay? So, if you want to get a source from the internet, use Google Scholar. That is more reliable. Okay, next is syndicated. When we say syndicated, they are released over time under the same general title. So example of that is periodicals like magazines and journals, television shows, blogs, and podcasts. So podcasts are the shows in audio. Then dynamic. They are never permanently published in a final form. If there are repeat performances or publications, they are different every time. Like play and other live performances. Di ba back in your junior high school, you used to watch plays and live performances? So that is dynamic. Wiki publications and field of research like observations, interviews, and survey. So, when we say dynamic, pwede siyang ulit-ulitin pero magkakaiba ng kinakalabasan. Diba? So, for example, in interview, when you interview one person, the result might be different when you interview another person. That's why it is called dynamic. Okay? Next is in writing a review of related literature and studies, we have the styles in writing it. Okay, so there are three ways or reasons when you cite the materials you use. When we say cite, you are acknowledging the materials that you use. So, a well-written research paper is not only backed up with relevant literature, but also correct, complete, and proper citation of its sources. So, the researcher, you must respect the intellectual property and effort of other researchers or writers by acknowledging their works in correct format. Okay? So, if you don't cite or acknowledge the writer or the other researcher or original writer of the information or data that you get, it will be plagiarism. So again, when we say plagiarism, it is getting an information without proper citing or stealing of others' work. Yes, I can steal. Yes, without consent from Luans. So first is to give credit to others' work and ideas, whether you agree with them or not. When you use their words, you must give them credit by using both quotation marks and citation. So, in writing or in giving credits or in acknowledging the writer's class as much as possible, don't use CTTO or what do you mean by that? A credit to the real owner? Wait, so yes, credit to the owner. Okay, so that don't as much as possible don't use that word. Okay, if when you are citing or acknowledging the writer, class, give the full name or the exact name of the writer. Maraming nadadali dyan sa fake news dahil sa CTTO. Okay? One way to check if the data is relevant or original or hindi siya fake news is to when you check the source. Pag nakalagay dyan sa dulo CTTO, ay malamang ano na to, fake news to. Okay? See, because when you are giving credits, as much as possible, give the name of the writer. Okay? To show readers the materials on which you base your analysis, your narrative, or conclusions. Naku, madami yan, di ba, class? For example, in Facebook, even in Google. Oh, so, to show your readers that your analysis is what? There is a basis. And to guide your readers to the materials you have used so that they can examine it for themselves. Their interest might be to confirm your work, to challenge it, or to simply to explore it further. So you must give your reference or the materials. Why? To confirm your work, kung totoo ba talagang doon nakuha yan. Di ba minsan kukuha lang ng link sa news kunwari and then ipopost na. So that is not correct. So as much as possible, kaya nga relevant, it must be connected to your topic. Okay? So in writing relevant literature and studies, we have three major citation styles or yung styles na gagamitin nyo when you are citing the reference or your reference. So when we say citation, okay, so in-text citation, when we say in-text citation, class, meaning in a paragraph or in your research, isa-cite nyo na or i-acknowledge nyo na yung writer, yung real writer. Okay, so include an in-text citation when you refer to, summarize, paraphrase, or quote from another source. So when you are referring, when you are summarizing, or when you are paraphrasing, so that is different, diba? When we say summarize, you are getting the general idea. When we say paraphrasing, you are explaining it in your own words. When you are quoting, meaning you are copying word by word from another source. So for every in-text citation in your paper or in your research, there must be a corresponding entry in your reference list. So meaning, every time you cite or every time you acknowledge someone or the writer in your thesis, there must be a corresponding entry in your reference or in your bibliography. So dalawa yan. Nandun na sila, nakasulat na sila or nakasite na sila sa research. So from chapter 1 to chapter 5, and at the same time, dapat meron kayong reference list at the end of your research or yung tinatawag natin na bibliography. Okay, so that they can check kung saan nyo ba nakuha. Okay, so we have three major styles. First is what we call the CMS or the Chicago Manual style. So it is used by history scholars. So history scholars to class for humanities and social sciences. The other one is the MLA, the Modern Language Association. So it is used in humanities, literature, and languages. And the APA, the American Psychological Association, it is used in social sciences, psychology, education, and business. Okay, so when you are writing or when you are citing your literature, the most common type or the most common style that the students are using is the APA. Okay, since it is easier and at the same time, it is used in education. Okay, so but it depends. For example, during your college thesis writing, your advisor or your teacher asks you to do MLA ang gagawin nyo. Okay, so they differ in style of writing and they differ in writing the writer or in writing the author. Okay? So, ano yun? So, we will focus on MLA and APA classes since this is the most common style in writing a research paper of a student. So, APA, paano ba sinusulat yung APA? So, APA, in-text citation style. Again, when we say in-text citation, ito yung pag ina-acknowledge nyo si writer sa thesis nyo mismo from chapters 1 to 5. Uses the author's last name and the year of publication. For example, Field, last name si Field, and then kung kailan pinablish yung literature niya. Okay, for direct quotation, when we say direct quotation class, yung gumagamit kayo ng quotation marks and at the same time, ano yun, you are copying it word by word. Okay, it includes the page number as well. Kung saan nyo siya kinopya. For example, Field is the last name, year of publication, 2005, and what page? Page 14. For sources such as websites and ebooks, for example, kumuha kayo sa internet, that have no page numbers, use a paragraph number. So, paragraph number dun sa kinuha nyong from internet. So, Field, last name, publication is the year, and anong paragraph yung kinopya nyo? Paragraph 1. Okay, so example, this one. So, you can see here, we have the last name and the year of publication. Derwin Thomas is the last name here, and here 2002 and 2004 is the year of publication. Okay, so that is APE. Again, in APA, we use the author's last name and the year of publication. Okay, that is in-text. Next is the in-text citation using MLA. So in MLA, we use the author's last name, the page number from which the quotation or paraphrase is taken. So as you can see, the difference is in the APA, we use the author's last name and the year of publication, while in MLA, we use the last name and the page number. Okay, so here Smith is the last name and the page is the 163. Okay, so if the source does not have page number, you just use the last name. Okay, so here we have the last name, the Derwing and Thomas, and the 246 and 15 as the page number. Okay, so that's the difference between APA and MLA. Again, in citing or in in-text citation, kapag you can use paraphrasing, you can use quote or quotations. Okay, so here is the APA and this is the MLA. Okay. Now, synthesizing the relevant literature. Now, when you get a relevant literature, hindi lang siya basta may ma-copy paste. Okay? So, most of the times, some students, di ba ganun lang ginagawa? Connected yan, pwede na yan. Oh, di ba? So, you have to synthesize first, of course. Okay? First is organize the surveyed information in terms of importance, from relevant to the least essential points. So, the most important one to the least essential points. So, i-organize niya pa siya. Next, classify and identify. When we say classify and identify, classify the category, the relationship, or the similarities. Pagsasama-samahin niyo sila. And then, ganun yung gagawin niyo. So, for example, first paragraph, the first category, second paragraph is the similarities. So, para hindi nakakalito. Okay? So, pwede niyong pagsamahin sa isang paragraph. For example, yung dalawang literature na nakuha nyo. Basta connected sila or same sila ng ideas, pagsasamahin sila sa isang paragraph. Okay? Classify and identify. Next, present the literature according to chronological or logical order from the recent to the earliest time of development. Logical order or chronological order. Next, analyze. So analyze their respective content, facts, findings, methods, concepts, and implications. So cite properly or all relevant literature into a meaningful whole. Meaning, hindi lang siya basta copy-paste class. In chapter 2, aside from copy-paste, okay, you have to analyze them. So after citing, and you have to analyze them pa. So i-explain nyo pa rin sila. Summarize, ayun yung sinasabi ko na summarize and paraphrase through synthesizing the information. Hindi lang siya basta copy-paste. So you will summarize also. And avoid misinterpretation. Okay? So when we say misinterpretation, baka na-misinterpret nyo or baka meron kayong ibang interpretation na hindi connected na dun sa topic. Okay? Like in-text citation yung kanina, yung ginawa natin. And synthesize into holistic body of content into one relevant discussion. Okay? So that is the last part of synthesizing relevant literature. You will synthesize. You will give your own analysis. Okay? So writing the review of related literature first. In writing chapter 2 first, you must have introduction. So in introduction, you should identify your topic, the significance. So the thesis statement that outlines what your conclusion will draw you. And if your literature review is part of larger work, you have to explain. So from to make it simple, in introduction from the word itself, you will just introduce and identify your topic and its significance. Okay? So after the introduction, you will write the body. Parang gumagawa lang rin kayo just ng essay. So in the body, it discusses and assesses the research according to specific organizational principles. So in writing the body of review of related literature, you can use this. First, pwede niyang gamitin yan. So when we say chronological order, it used from oldest to the recent. In the theme, yung respective premise nila, ayun yung gagamitin nyo. Or you can organize it by sector. When we say by sector, connect the research topic to the different backgrounds. Yung different backgrounds niya or magbibigay kayo ng background ng topic niyo. And then you will connect them one by one. Next is the development of ideas. When we say development of ideas, the stages of ideas that are developing. And you can use the four or the combination of all. So this is used, depende sa inyo if you want. So some research topic needs the combination of all to organize the related literature. So it's up to you what do you want to use or what organizational principles you want to use. Pwede naman combination of all. Pwede naman pwedeng wala na yung sector. It's okay. Okay? So after the body is the conclusion. So when we say conclusion, it should provide the summary of your findings from the literature review. So at the last part of chapter 2 or review of related literature and studies, you have to explain what your analysis of the materials that leads you to conclude the overall state of literature. Okay? So it is not just copy-pasting. So aside from copy-pasting, you have to cite, you have to use in-text citation, and also you have to summarize your literature or your review of related literatures and studies. Okay? So that is the 3 parts of the chapter 2. So in writing a review of related literature or para mabilis the RRL, the first is the research misconduct. Ibig sabihin yung mga maling ginagawa in our research. First is yung fabrication, making up data or results when recording or reporting them. So, ano ba yung fabrication? So, when we say fabrication, di ba yung dinadaya? Yes, I can. Okay. So, falsification, yun naman yung manipulating. Sa fabrication, making up data. For example, ay hindi na ako mag-survey, sasagutan ko na lang tong 100 na survey questionnaire na to. Okay. So, falsification, ganun din, but it is manipulating the research materials. Okay. Plagiarism, ayan, getting or stealing others' work without giving appropriate credit. And self-plagiarism. So, when we say self-plagiarism, under plagiarism, copying of part of own previous published study, okay, without proper or appropriate citation. Next is the work already published by an author becomes a property of scientific medical literature in actual sense and cannot be duplicated. Yung iba kasi, di ba, copy-paste, ay, hindi naman nalaman yan. That is plagiarism. Pero, once na mahuli kayo, that is ground for parang lahat ng buong thesis nyo, kahit isa ng kopyahin dyan, madi-disregard na yan. Okay? Next is the use of sentence from published medical literature with minor modification. In a word structure, without attribution is also plagiarism. Even minor modification. Kahit umiyak kayo sa prof, bawal yan class. Kasi pati yung prof nyo madadamay kapag pinagbigyan kayo. Yes, there are websites na pwedeng i-check if the literature or if the thesis is plagiarized or not. Okay, so even a minor modification, alam ko naman yung gawain ng students, ay copy-paste, tapos palitan natin yung ibang words. That is modification, but still plagiarism. Using public photos or images without written permission is also considered as plagiarism. Okay, so using published photos and or images without written permission is also plagiarism. Now, if you want to use photos or images from the internet, there are websites na free yung pictures nila. So you can use it for your research. Meron yun, for example, yung mga free pick, ganun. Ibig sabihin, wala siyang copyright. So you can use that. But most pictures is copyrighted, so you have to ask permission. So any statement that contains fact that is not universally known or contains factual details should be a reference. Lahat ng gagamitin nyo should be reference. Scientific misconduct, the fabrication and falsification is now beginning to be considered similar to other criminal offenses and often committed by the same offender. Okay? So, yes, that is a criminal offense, especially if it is an intellectual property. When we say intellectual property, hindi man siya nakikita or hindi man siya materials, pero inisip ng isang tao, pinaghirapan ng isang tao, and then kokopyahin niya lang ng basta-basta, that is a criminal offense. Okay? And that's all for today's discussion. Do you have any question about our discussion? So see you next week for another discussion. Okay, so thank you class and stay safe.